30 years ago, an airline called PeoplExpress did the unthinkable. They charged passengers to check their bags. It was $3, but still, it defied existing logic at the time. Bags were supposed to be included in the cost of your ticket. 2 checked bags each, weighing 70 pounds, no questions asked. But this long-standing practice baffled Don Burr, the CEO of PeoplExpress. Why should someone traveling with just a carry-on be forced to pay the same as someone with 2 checked bags? By effectively unbundling the bag, he could lower his base fare and make flying more affordable for us lighter packers, but still cover his costs when people did choose to travel with more stuff.
The airline has built its service around the country by excluding the price of meals, ticket counters, and luggage handling from the price of the ticket.
An ad from 1985 summarized it perfectly. At PeoplExpress, you never pay for the things you don't want, which is why you pay so little for the things you do want. With this approach, the airline had no trouble filling its planes, and they grew quickly, perhaps a little too quickly. Within 4 years of its founding in 1981, the company had grown to 4,000 employees and was carrying 1 million passengers per month, making it the 5th largest U.S. airline behind United, American, Delta, and Eastern. They were even named the fastest growing corporation in U.S. history at the time by The Economist.
It's unlike anything I've ever seen before or worked in before. People enjoy what they're doing. They like it. They know that if they don't like it, they can make a change.
And guys, when I say their fares were low, they were low, or at least low at the time, when flying was still pretty unaffordable. One of their most famous deals was New York to Buffalo for $19, which, as you could imagine, really got people talking.
The cost of everything is going up. But thanks to PeoplExpress Airlines, the cost of going up is going down.
PeoplExpress attracted customers not only from competing air carriers, but also from rail and bus lines. And they were a legitimate flying bus service. To start, well,
he operates from a formerly abandoned terminal at Newark Airport, where the rent is extremely low.
There was no assigned seating, and you didn't actually pay for your ticket until you were on board. You could reserve a flight in advance, but because you didn't have to pay, PE would massively overbook flights, sometimes to 3x capacity. Now, most of the time this was fine because not everyone showed up, but during the 1985 holiday season, there were several occasions where everyone did decide to show up, creating riot-like conditions. Now, I'm making it sound pretty awful, but people actually seem to have a lot of fun with this airline. Flyer Talk user Silvermine recalls his trip from Newark to West Palm on one of PeoplExpress's 727s. My carry-on was a brown paper bag with a few beers and a sandwich, $49 cash, one-way fare collected after boarding. I recall the party atmosphere on those flights. Some liken their planes to mocha-colored meatballs, but a plane was a plane, and it was faster than car or rail. For less than $100 from Newark to Oakland, heck, I'd look the other way too. But you guys know the drill. Low fares means you have to keep your costs low to make money, and ultimately PeoplExpress couldn't sustain its profits. The company grew a little bit too fast, taking out loads of debt to fund their growth, including the $300 million acquisition of Frontier Airlines in 1985, and they tried to unseat the big guys before they were ready. As such, they met their demise in 1986 when Don Burr sold the company to Texas Air Corporation, the owner of Continental, for pennies on the dollar.
The great experiment is over. PeoplExpress Airlines has made its final flight. It was flight number 382 from Newark to Jacksonville.
It was a sad day for Don, as he was basically bending the knee to his former boss, Frank Lorenzo, who he thought he could outmaneuver with PeoplExpress. At any rate, even though the airline didn't last, its innovations wouldn't go unnoticed. Airline executives were understandably hesitant to nickel and dime for a while, after most of the low-cost startups of the 1980s went belly up. But in the mid-2000s, a man by the name of John Thomas was determined to orchestrate its revival. Thomas was a consultant, and a big one at that, recently promoted to the global head of LEK's aviation practice. Airlines basically came to him for advice on generating new revenue streams. At first, Thomas struggled to get airlines to listen, as executives were hesitant to piss off passengers by imposing fees. Keep in mind that at this time, Frontier Airlines had a 2 bags fly free policy, and they also had DirecTV, although you did have to pay a few bucks for that. But come 2008, as oil prices skyrocketed, they really were facing an existential crisis. Crude had gone from around $50 a barrel in 2005 to $100 on the first trading day of 2008, adding hundreds of millions of dollars to the fuel bills of major U.S. airlines. For American, this meant an almost $400 million profitability swing from Q1 2007 to Q1 2008. So they went from making $81 million to losing $328 million, driven by a $660 million increase in fuel costs. If oil prices were to remain at $100 plus a barrel, something would need to change. Executives first looked to the cost side of the equation, accelerating retirements of older planes, upgrading interiors with lighter seats, scaling back capacity, freezing hiring, and in some cases laying off employees. But Thomas convinced his clients that those measures wouldn't be enough, and he put together some fancy charts reassuring them that revenue gains from baggage fees would more than offset any share losses if competitors didn't follow suit. The first domino to fall was American Airlines, who became the first full-service U.S. carrier to charge for the first checked bag. On Wednesday, May 21, 2008, American announced it would begin charging $15 for bag number 1 and $25 for bag number 2 on domestic discount coach tickets. As Thomas predicted, others soon followed, including United, US Airways, Northwest, Hawaiian, and Continental. Travelers were frustrated, but it didn't really make a dent in overall demand. It allowed the full-service airlines to generate more revenue without raising ticket prices. For the most part, it was pure margin, a true lifesaver when the airlines were getting suffocated by fuel costs. But of course, when fuel prices normalized, airlines didn't scrap the checked bag fees. The floodgates had been opened, and travelers were now conditioned to paying for bags.
Pretty soon the surcharges will be higher than the cost of the airline ticket itself.
Suddenly, flying an airline like Spirit was more attractive. Since you were going to have to pay for a bag anyways, why not pay 20 to 30% less for the base ticket and save yourself some money in the process? When Spirit started charging for carry-on bags in 2010, I think the PeoplExpress style of aggressive unbundling was officially back.
What are they going to do next? Charge you for your coats?
On Spirit, there's not even any free water. It costs $3.
Consider this, between 2007 and 2011, Spirit grew revenues by around 9% per year. But ticket revenue was flat, meaning the growth was entirely driven by the introduction of new ancillary fees, things like bags, advanced seat selection, and the $9 Fare Club subscription product. Practically, this meant that the average passenger ended up paying about 30% more than the price they saw online to add the additional products and services they wanted. So that didn't sit too well. Plus, customer service and operational reliability weren't exactly on the same level of the legacy carriers, so Spirit established a bit of a reputation. But Ben Baldanza, CEO of Spirit at the time, was proud of his company's transformation and didn't hesitate to describe the company as a glorified bus service and a dollar store of the sky. Whether Ben drew inspiration from Don of PeoplExpress, I don't know, but to me, the new ultra-low-cost Spirit smelled a lot like a reincarnation of the Mocha Meatball, minus the 747s and overly aggressive growth trajectory. Like PeoplExpress, they leveraged the market conditions at the time, notably rising airfares and shallower consumer pockets, to take share while keeping costs low enough to sustain profits. Remember, in 2008, oil prices tanked, so fuel bills were cheaper, but part of the reason they tanked is because the housing bubble popped, erasing trillions in wealth and crushing premium travel demand. Spirit was the cheaper alternative, so they were sheltered from the impacts of the global financial crisis, and they rode the wave for the better part of a decade before COVID hit.
But I've never heard you this upbeat. I mean, it was really incredible. You're an upbeat guy. But it looks like that everything's coming together. The other airlines are all raising price. You have a pricing umbrella that it looks like people are just loving right now.
So they lasted a lot longer than PeoplExpress did, and many proclaim the Spirit model to be the future of air travel. And now they're bankrupt. Why? Well, I could do a whole nother video on that, but I actually don't think it's a total indictment on the ultra low-cost model. Allegiant and Sun Country have done just fine in this new era of premium travel, despite not having all the extra legroom seats, the lounges, the loyalty programs, and the long-haul international routes. But they've benefited from network exclusivity, whereas Spirit has not. Spirit has had to compete head-to-head with United, Delta, and American on many of their routes out of places like Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, and Vegas. This downward pressure on fares, combined with the lack of capacity discipline and a decline in operational efficiency, and the losses have really mounted, totaling almost $2.5 billion since 2020. Management responded by rolling out a number of changes, cutting back capacity, introducing more bundled fares, and relaxing restrictions on even its most basic fares. In theory, Spirit should be better positioned than a Frontier and even a Southwest to capture premium travelers. I mean, they have first-class seats and Wi-Fi after all. They just need to figure out pricing and be a little more disciplined with their network planning. Is it too late? Maybe. Whether they merge with someone, try to weather the storm on their own, or just liquidate like Scott Kirby has predicted, they'll forever be known as an innovator in the industry, just like PeoplExpress. And when the pendulum swings back toward budget travel, as I think it inevitably will, maybe we'll see the airlines that have over-indexed on premium, United, encounter some struggles of their own. But who am I to say? But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this quick rant on the history of ultra low-cost travel, and I wish you the safest and happiest of travels, wherever your journeys may take you. So long from Flaps HQ in Orlando.